Hi, fans of high quality entertainment. I recently did a tier list for albums from 1974. And I'm on Twitter, or it's called X now, and I follow Taste Like Music on X. They're one of my favorite YouTube channels. And I noticed they posted about this new Rolling Stone list, the 74 best albums of 1974. And from their response, they weren't that impressed with it. I haven't looked through it yet. But, right away, 1974, I'm thinking Blue Oyster Cult. I'm thinking that's the year I became a huge Sparks fan. And Rolling Stone, through the years, has basically totally ignored Sparks. When I used to buy the magazine in the 70s and 80s and 90s, there might have been like one or two mentions of them, like, a record review or something. But other than that, Sparks have never been on the cover of Rolling Stone, which is probably a good thing. So let's go through this and, thinking back to 1974, even though I did that list, I'm not going to remember everything. I'm sure there's going to be some great albums missing on this list. And let me know, if it's from 1974, if you've noticed anything missing, and also what you think of this overall best of. And I will be actually surprised if Sparks Kimono My House, or, they released two albums in 1974, or Propaganda is in this list. And if it isn't, I'm going to be so mad. Here we go. So I see there Brian Eno, Smokey Robinson, Dolly Parton, Stevie Wonder, Neil Young, Steven Tyler, Richard Pryor, Joni Mitchell, and David Bowie. '74 Eagles. I'm not a big Eagles fan, but they have their fans, and I'm not nothing against their talent. It's just not my kind of a band. George Jones, the Grand Tour. So they're doing all kinds of genres. Ooh, that's way too low. Supertramp, Crime of the Century. That should be way higher. Tom Waits, The Heart of Saturday Night. I never really got into him, but I've heard some of his albums and I enjoy him. But I don't think I've ever heard that particular album. I seriously can't believe it. Rolling Stone, I'm so impressed with you. I'm never going to bash Rolling Stone again. I won't read all of that, but if you want to pause the video to read it. Yeah, they're more famous than ever these days, thanks to Edgar Wright's acclaimed documentary, The Sparks Brothers. Yeah, of course, now that they're acclaimed, But like I said, they ignore them for so many years. Kiss, I'm not a big fan of Kiss, but even I think that is a great debut album. Truck Turner, I've never even heard of that album. Isaac Hayes. Queen, Sheer Heart Attack, that should be higher, but good to see it on the list. Oh, and by the way, Sparks Kimono My House is way too low. Never heard of that album. ABBA Waterloo. Glenn Kellaway's favorite band. I don't mind their music. Sweet. Yeah, very underrated band. I saw footage of them in the mid 70s actually playing live, not lip syncing. And they were a darn good live band. Bonnie Raitt, Streetlights, very respectful artist. Barry White, can't get enough. With his deep voice. Golden Ear and Moontan, that's nice to see on the list. That cover. Richard Pryor, that crazy. He was definitely funny. It's just, sometimes all of the swearing. I don't mind a comedian swearing, but it was just a bit too much back in the day at least. BT Express. Never heard that album. The Rolling Stones, yeah. It's not one of their great albums, but it's still, a good Rolling Stones album. Merle Haggard presents his 30th album. It's a lot of albums. I like him. Some of his hit singles. Mama Tried, Okie from Muskogee. The Grateful Dead, there's one for Glenn Kellaway from the Basement. Never heard that album. Ohio Players, Skin Tight. Boom, Dylan, Planet Waves. It's an okay album. I love, I love Kraftwerk Autobahn. Good to see it on the list. Toots and the Maytals, In the Dark. Reggae. Mo Bandy. I just started hating cheating songs today. Lou Reed, Rock and Roll Animal. I don't know. I have that. I have all of Lou Reed's albums. I'm just not a big fan of most live albums. I think it's good, but I would just rather listen to one of his studio albums. That's a pretty good album, Pussycats. I know Harry Nilsson's vocals were in pretty rough shape, but some of the songs are really good. And produced by John Lennon. I love that album cover too. 48, Ronnie Wood, I've heard that album. It's pretty good. Can, I have that. I just prefer their earlier albums. I need to listen to this one more, but it's good to see Can on the list. James Brown, Reality. I like James Brown, but never heard that particular album. Van Morrison, It's Too Late to Stop Now. I used to have that. I kind of gave up on Van Morrison. But it's a good live album for sure. Aerosmith, Get Your Wings. Early Aerosmith is very good. My favorite, though, is Toys in the Attic. Minnie Riperton, Perfect Angel. Never heard. Parliament, Up for the Downstroke. That's a strange album cover. Elton John, Caribou. It's good. Oh, that should be at least in the top 10. One of my all-time favorite albums. No Other by Gene Clark. Smokey Robinson, Pure Smokey. John Lennon, Walls and Bridges. That should be a little higher. That's a great album. And Peebles, I Can't Stand the Rain. Joe Cocker covered that song too. I've never heard Anything by Graham Parsons, like from his solo career. If it's anything like Gene Clark, I might need to. Rufus, never got into with Chaka Khan. Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And they have there's a new box set, 50th anniversary of this coming out. I like it. It's just not my favorite Genesis album. I really like it. But I just like other ones more. The Meters, never heard. Miles Davis, Get Up With It. I have some Miles Davis albums, but I've never heard this one. Such a happy cover. Jackson Browne. I never got into Jackson Browne, but, very talented artist. Yay, Blue Oyster Cult. Awesome. Good to see that on the list in the top 30. Funkadelic. I love their album covers. I have listened to some of their music, and it's kind of Frank Zappa-ish, but I've never heard like a full album. Willie Nelson, Phases and Stages, never heard. He's released a few albums. Al Green Explores Your Mind. That would be scary. I don't think you'd want to, Al. J. Gall's Band, I bought that when it came out. It was good. They're better live, but it's still a pretty good studio album. Nightmares and Other Tales from the Vinyl Jungle. The Stylistics, Let's Put It All Together. Load More. Brian Ferry, I never got into Brian Ferry's solo career. Trying to close this here. Ooh, he looks very serious. Millie Jackson, never heard. Leonard Cohen, I've never heard that album. New Skin for the Old Ceremony, but I do like him. Lynyrd Skynyrd. Yeah, I do a lot of reactions on my Patreon for Lynyrd Skynyrd. I always enjoy them, but they're just not a band, where I would buy their albums. Randy Newman. Love Randy Newman, and I love that album. So yeah, let me know what's missing from this year. I can't really think of anything at the moment. Dolly Parton. Featuring I Will Always Love You. Steely Dan, I'm not a fan of Steely Dan. It's not like I dislike them. It's just not the kind of music I gravitate towards. Linda Ronstadt, never really got into her. Brian Eno. I've heard bits of this album, and it's, I think, the kind of music I would really like. I just need to check it out sometime. Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy. Betty Davis, They Say I'm Different. David Bowie, yep, Diamond Dogs, great album, love it. King Crimson Red, love it. I've heard bits of this album, but just not the full album. But I know it's considered a classic. LaBelle, Nightbirds. Top 10. Roxy Music, Country Life, never listened to. I love their debut album. Van Morrison, Veed and Fleece, one of the few early Van Morrison albums I never heard. Number 8, New York. That's a bit high. New York Doll's Too Much Too Soon. So that's a better album than Sparks' Kimono My House. Way, way too high. The Spinners' Mighty Love. I like some of their songs. Big Star. I've seen the documentary on Big Star and I've heard some of their music and it's good. But once again, I've never heard this complete album. There's a lot of albums to listen to, believe it or not. Brian Eno, another Brian Eno. Here Comes the Warm Jets. I like his album covers. They're cool. Bob Marley, Natty Dread. Not a big reggae fan, but I don't mind it. I'm just more of a rock and roll guy. 3, good album, Cord and Spark. Yep, Joni Mitchell, very good album. Number 2, Stevie Wonder, Fulfillingness First Finale. Very good album. Number 1, what's missing? 1974. So Led Zeppelin didn't release anything. Black Sabbath, they wouldn't be on the, they wouldn't be number 1 anyway. What is it? Ooh, that's a good choice. Neil Young, On the Beach. Yeah. Such a happy album. It's hard to dance to though. So yeah, that's an interesting list. Some good, some not so good. But the main reason I do this is not so you can hear me yap, but I look forward to the comments and like what's missing from this list. Just make sure the album's from 1974. Yeah, Paul McCartney, I don't think released anything. Yeah, so love your thoughts in the comments section below. Please remember to like the video and subscribe. Thank you.